The grand hall was dressed in elegance. Glittering chandeliers bathed the marble floors in soft golden light. Laughter echoed, glasses clinked, and conversations buzzed between wealthy guests dressed in tailored suits and glamorous gowns. Everything about the place screamed perfection, the kind that made anyone outside of that world feel small. And then the main door slowly creaked open. Heads turned, not all at once, but one by one, like a ripple moving through water. Standing at the entrance was a woman, not dressed in silk, no diamonds around her neck, no expensive heels, just a plain, simple dress, a little faded at the edges. Her shoes were worn from years of use, and her hair was neatly tied, but far from the polished waves of the others. In her hand, a slightly frayed handbag that had clearly seen better days. At first, some people ignored her, assuming maybe she was staff or someone's assistant. But then the whispers started. Quiet, sharp. Who's that? Did someone actually invite her? A few smirked, others raised an eyebrow. Some didn't even bother, hiding their judgment. To them, she didn't belong. Not in this room. Not in this world. She walked slowly, head slightly lowered, eyes scanning for a quiet corner, somewhere to exist without being noticed. But this was a place where the unnoticed were noticed, exactly because they tried not to be. Her presence didn't match the luxury, and that fact alone became entertainment for the bored eyes watching her every step. But here's the thing. What none of them knew was that this simple woman wasn't just another guest. No, she carried something inside her, something that was about to shake this entire room to its core. Ready? Because what happens next flips the whole energy of the room. The cruel setup, a broken piano, and a wicked joke. As the simple woman quietly made her way to the far corner, hoping to disappear into the background, a group of sharp-eyed guests had already locked onto her like predators spotting easy prey. They leaned against the marble counter, sipping their expensive drinks, their smug grins growing wider by the second. "She must be lost," one of them muttered, loud enough for the others to hear. Another chuckled, shaking his head. "Look at her. She doesn't belong here." But one man among them, the loudest, the one who always needed to be the center of attention, had a twisted idea. His eyes shifted toward an old grand piano sitting lonely in the corner of the room. It wasn't like the polished instruments you'd see on a stage. No. This piano was dusty, its keys chipped, some slightly crooked. People often joked that it was there more as decoration than for actual music. The perfect tool for humiliation. With a mischievous smirk, he elbowed his friend and whispered, "Watch this." The group exchanged knowing glances, feeding off each other's arrogance. Then he stepped forward, putting on the fakest smile you could imagine. "Excuse me," he called out loud enough for half the room to hear, pretending to be polite. "Would you be so kind as to play us something?" His tone was sweet on the surface, but anyone paying attention could hear the mockery dripping between the words. Another man chimed in, pretending to be supportive, but barely holding back his laugh. Yes, bless us with some music. It would be delightful." The group giggled, fully expecting this woman to either refuse and walk away in embarrassment or worse, try and fail miserably, giving them exactly the joke they were hunting for. Around them, guests began noticing what was happening. Heads turned. Curious smiles formed. Glasses were lowered. Conversations paused. Even those far from the scene began sensing something was brewing, a moment of humiliation. Or so they thought. The simple woman looked at them. For a second, she said nothing. No smile. No frown. Just stillness. Her eyes flickered between the man, the piano, and the watching crowd. The tension was heavy. You could practically hear the silent bets being made in people's minds. Would she refuse and leave in shame? Or try and collapse under the weight of their laughter? But then she moved. And what she did next, not a single person in that room saw it coming. She hesitates, then starts walking toward the piano. For a brief moment, time itself felt like it paused. The simple woman stood completely still, her fingers tightening around the strap of her worn bag. Her eyes flicked toward the piano, then back to the faces glaring at her. Faces laced with sarcasm, smugness, and the thrill of watching someone fall. She didn't say a word. her lips pressed tightly together, almost as if weighing her options. Should she walk away and spare herself the humiliation these people clearly hoped for? Or was this her moment? A chance, no, a decision, to show them something none of them could ever imagine? The laughter grew quieter, replaced by the subtle sound of whispers mixing with anticipation. People leaned in closer. Phones slid silently from pockets. Cameras discreetly aimed her way, not because they expected brilliance, but because they were ready to capture failure. The kind of failure that would get shared, joked about, gossiped over for days to come. And then her left foot moved. Just one step. Then the right. Slowly, deliberately, she began walking straight toward the dusty, neglected piano. The sound of her heels tapping softly against the marble floor echoed louder than the gossip in the air. You could literally feel the shift. Conversation stopped. Jaws clenched. Eyes widened slightly, a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Her shoulders weren't slumped. No, she wasn't walking like someone defeated. There was something calm in her posture, subtle, controlled, as if she wasn't walking toward humiliation, but toward destiny. And yet not a single person could predict what was truly about to happen. Reaching the piano, she paused for just a second. Her hand hovered over the bench, fingers brushing the dust on the wood. Her head lowered slightly, as if whispering something to herself. A deep breath in. Her hand let go of her bag. She slowly sat down. The room tightened. The tension? Almost unbearable. Some people chuckled under their breath. Others folded their arms, waiting to witness the disaster unfold. But the moment her fingers lifted toward the keys, the entire energy in the room was about to change in a way they never ever expected. The first note, laughter, turns into breathless silence. She adjusted herself quietly on the worn piano bench. Her hands hovered above the keys, fingers slightly trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what this moment had become. Her eyes scanned the piano. Dust settled between the cracks. Some keys were chipped. A few looked slightly tilted, almost broken. An instrument meant to embarrass, not to inspire. A small snicker echoed from the corner. "Here it comes," someone whispered, barely holding back a laugh. Another person pulled out their phone, angling it for the perfect shot, fully expecting to capture a hilarious moment of failure. Her fingers inched closer. Then one note, soft, fragile, but strangely, hauntingly clear. It floated through the air, slicing clean through the thick cloud of mockery that hung over the room. Not loud, not dramatic, just pure, almost delicate. For half a second, no one reacted. Some blinked, confused. Others glanced at each other as if silently asking, "Was that good?" And then another note. Then another. The sounds grew, forming the shape of something unexpected, something beautiful. A melody began weaving itself from the broken keys, rising out of the dust like something forgotten, yet deeply familiar. The laughter? Gone. Replaced by stillness. Conversations froze mid-sentence. The man holding his drink paused, glass halfway to his lips. Even the ones recording stopped smiling. Their phones still pointed, but their fingers frozen, forgetting to even hit record. There was a magic to it, an unspoken truth. The kind of sound that doesn't just fill a room, it fills a soul. You could see it, the subtle widening of eyes, the slight parting of lips, eyebrows slowly raising not in mockery, but in disbelief. How was this possible? A broken piano, a simple woman. And yet, the most beautiful melody anyone in that room had heard in years was flowing like silk, effortlessly, gracefully. And just when they started thinking, maybe this was just luck, maybe she'd mess up any second, what happened next shattered every last doubt in that room. The simple woman transforms. Her fingers tell a story they never expected. Her fingers, once hesitant, were no longer trembling. In fact, they moved with a fluidity that stunned even the harshest critics in the room. Like water flowing over rocks. Like wind dancing through leaves. Each note was intentional. Each chord was a statement. It was no longer just someone playing the piano. No, it was something bigger, something deeper. She wasn't pressing keys, she was unlocking stories. Her stories. Stories the room never asked for, but desperately needed to hear. Pain was there, tucked inside the minor keys, echoing years of being overlooked, judged, dismissed. But so was resilience, pouring through rising scales, reminding every listener that brokenness doesn't erase beauty, it enhances it. She leaned in closer, her eyes closed now, lost in the world her hands were creating. Her fingers glided faster, bolder. Left hand painting a heartbeat rhythm, steady and grounding. Right hand floating effortlessly, dropping melodies that felt like raindrops hitting glass. The dusty, neglected piano, once nothing more than a decoration, a punchline, became a vessel of something sacred. The same chipped keys they intended to mock her with now sang. The room was frozen. No one blinked. No one moved. A few guests quietly lowered their phones, realizing this was no joke. This was witnessing greatness. Real, raw greatness disguised in simplicity. And the most shocking part? The music wasn't just technically flawless, it was emotional warfare. Each note hit the chest like a pulse. Like a reminder. A reminder that everyone in that room, every single person who chuckled, who whispered, who doubted, had been dead wrong. And yet the real moment that would change them forever was still coming. The crowd's faces change, from mockery to shame, from doubt to awe. If you scanned the room at that exact moment, it was like watching a slow-motion collapse of arrogance. The same faces that were smirking minutes ago, now frozen, lips parted, eyes wider than they had ever been. The grin that one man held, the one who set her up, had vanished completely. His jaw slightly clenched now, as if holding back a lump in his throat he didn't expect. An older woman gripped the edge of her wine glass tighter, her knuckles turning pale. Her eyebrows were drawn together, not in confusion, but in a strange mix of disbelief and guilt. A young couple that once exchanged sarcastic giggles now sat stiff, eyes glued to the woman at the piano, blinking back emotions they weren't prepared to feel. Even the ones who pulled out their phones to film, hands once steady, ready to capture someone's downfall, now trembled slightly. Some phones quietly lowered. Others kept recording, but for a completely different reason now. They weren't recording a joke anymore. They were recording a miracle. The shift was undeniable. You could see it in their faces: regret, discomfort, awe, and most of all, shame. Shame for judging. Shame for mocking. Shame for being so quick to label a simple woman as someone beneath them. The energy of the room was no longer loud and superior. It was heavy, thick, the type of silence that presses against your chest, that forces you to face yourself, to ask yourself questions you don't want to answer. How many times had they done this before? How many people had they dismissed because of how they looked? How many simple souls had they overlooked, who might have been extraordinary? And while their minds wrestled with that, her fingers didn't stop. Her hands didn't hesitate. She continued, rising, soaring, delivering beauty after beauty, like a storm of grace crashing against the walls of their ignorance. But they had no idea. The most unforgettable moment of the night was still just seconds away. The final note, and the room erupts in absolute shock. Her fingers began to slow, not because she was tired, but because the masterpiece she was weaving was reaching its climax. Her eyes stayed shut, her head tilted slightly downward, fully immersed in the last strokes of a story she had told through sound. A story of pain, of survival, of untold brilliance buried beneath years of being overlooked. The melody softened, drifting, thinning out like the final words of a long, poetic letter. Her left hand pressed one final bass note, deep, heavy, grounding. Her right hand followed, tiptoeing across the upper keys, landing softly, softly, until that one final note, crystal clear, pure, sharp, and yet so delicate it felt like the entire room was holding its breath just to catch it before it vanished into the air. The sound hung there for a moment that felt like an eternity, as if the very walls, the chandeliers, and every soul present were clinging to it, refusing to let it go. Then, complete, terrifying silence. No one moved. No one even breathed. And then, Like thunder snapping the sky in half, the room exploded. Applause. Cheers. People jolted to their feet as if lifted by some unseen force. Hands clapped so hard that palms stung. Some shouted words they themselves didn't understand. Bravo. Oh my God. Incredible. Chairs scraped backward. Wine glasses tipped. Tears fell. No, not fell, poured. Even the man who had orchestrated the joke, his hands shook. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes were glassy. Red. You could see him physically battling something inside, the weight of regret pounding against the walls of his own pride. A few guests tried to cheer louder, as if trying to drown out the guilt they felt for what they had assumed. Some wiped at their faces quickly, hoping no one would notice their tears. But it was too late. This wasn't just a performance. This wasn't just music. It was a revelation, a public undoing of judgment. A brutal, undeniable reminder that sometimes the people you mock are the very people sent to humble you. And yet, as the applause roared, what she did next silenced the entire room once again, in a way they never ever expected. She walks away, leaving behind a message they'll never forget. The thunder of applause shook the room. People clapped like their hands were on fire. Some shouted her name, even though, truthfully, no one even knew it. Others tried to push closer, desperate to be near her, desperate to pretend they hadn't just been the ones mocking her minutes ago. But while the crowd roared, she didn't flinch. No smile, no tears, no grand gestures. She simply stood, slowly, gracefully, like a queen who never needed a crown. Her hands, the same hands that just delivered a masterpiece, calmly brushed the dust off her skirt. She reached down, picked up her old, frayed handbag, looped it over her shoulder, and without a word, turned away from the piano. She didn't bow. She didn't wave. She didn't wait for praise. She walked straight toward the door. The crowd? Confused. A wave of people instinctively followed with their eyes. Some tried to step forward. Wait, someone called. Please, what's your name? Another shouted. But she didn't turn. Not even for a second. Her steps were steady. Calm, silent, but heavier than 1,000 speeches. Each step wasn't just a walk, it was a statement. A statement that said, I never needed your approval. I never needed your validation. You laughed, but the only joke here was you. As the door slowly closed behind her, the applause faded into something else, a deep, echoing silence. The kind of silence where every person is left staring not at the door, but at themselves. And the message? Brutally clear, loud without ever being spoken. Never, ever, judge someone by how they look. Because hidden within the simplest souls lives the kind of greatness that doesn't just shock the world, it changes it. And on that night, a simple woman walked in as a stranger, but walked out as a legend. Sometimes, life has a way of reminding us that the most extraordinary souls are hidden in the simplest forms. This wasn't just about a woman playing a piano. This was about courage, resilience, and the silent power of rising above judgment. Her story isn't just hers, it's a lesson for all of us. Never underestimate anyone. Never judge someone by what they wear, how they look, or where they come from. Because true greatness needs no introduction. It speaks for itself. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of the hidden strength we all carry, then don't keep it to yourself. Smash that like button. Share this powerful message with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more stories that inspire, empower, and awaken the soul. Remember, kindness costs nothing. But judgment? Sometimes it costs you the chance to witness greatness.